This is my van, and this dusty old thing is a drum, and they have a lot in common. Let me explain. You see, this is a drum head, and in my mind, that is very similar to the skin of the van. This is where sound would originate and reverberate and bounce around, much like the totality of this drum. See, you can hear the sound resonating. It's out of tune, but it's resonating within the surface of the drum, within the body of the drum, much like my van. Now, when we take something as simple as my hand and apply it to the surface of the drum, we go from something like to, you see, the weight and mass of my hand has stopped some of that reverberation. So to try and cut down on some reverberation within the back of this van, I know some of you have been following along the squeaks and bumps and all the noises. I partnered with a company called Second Skin. And we are going to apply a lot of this material. You can see their logo right there. We are going to take this butyl rubber and foil material and apply it back here to dampen the sound in the van. And where would we do that? Nowhere else besides Main Line Overland. Let's get to it. Just to give you a baseline of what the van looks like inside without any sound deadening, you can see the factory floor is there, but there is no actual sound deadening anywhere else. That'll get some, that row will get some, and down there, but not where the windows are. Not there. And then we're gonna pull that crap out and get some stuff above and below. And we're going to kick things off by starting to remove everything above the two front seats. We have to remove this sort of plasticky compartment around the sensors in the front and then slowly start to pull more stuff out. Now that the electronics have been freed, it's time to start removing screws so that we can get the trim, visors, and oh crap handles loose and out of the way. And as part of the process, the overhead shelf needs to come out, but I didn't actually film that because I helped carry it out of the way. There you go, Pat is removing the last visor, and that is what the headliner looks like inside a Sprinter with no visors, no nothing. And once we get some more trim out of the way, things unscrewed, we can then start to free up the actual headliner itself and start pulling it backwards out of the area that it is currently occupying. Look how little is up here right now. Like, that's it. Just those little things. And we've got all this space back here. All that space in there. Like, there's so much more that you can do here. And they just don't. This is the palette from Second Skin Audio. Obviously, we need a lot of product to both sound deaden and insulate the van. And we're going to get into the products itself in just a little bit. The first product we're going to take a look at is the Damplifier Pro. Now, this is not a review by any means, but I do have this stuff inside my front doors. I did the install there. It's a butyl rubber attached to a foil product, and I'll tell you what, there are others like it, but this stuff is the stuff that I choose to go with. I really, really like the quality of their products. And we're going to start by installing sound deadening above the cab. It's actually really freaking noisy when you're driving along, obviously before we put this stuff in. But here we're just trying to get a feel for how to lay it out, and we are going to cover as much of this as we possibly can. While Pat's trimming up and installing the first panel, I'll try to explain why we're doing so much in the front end area. We want to do as much as possible because I don't want to have to pull the headliner ever again. It's not the easiest thing out there, and if we can kind of go as far as we possibly can, cover as much ground as we possibly can with sound deadening and later on insulation, we will never have to pull it out ever again, at least hopefully. And one of the main ideas with this sound deadening is to try and defeat noise. The front end of the van has an incredible, it's meeting all of that air as you're driving down the road. There is an incredible amount of wind noise, especially with the roof rack and all those lights. Not only that, but there's a lot of heat exposure on the front end. That sort of forehead of the van is exposed quite often, and trying to protect that and sort of insulate the inside of the van makes the whole space more efficient in terms of heating and cooling. And that's why you see Pat trying to get this sort of half piece that he cut into a tighter space. We don't want to ever pull it out again. We don't want to have to go back and go, oh, I wish I would have added blah, blah, blah. We're trying to insulate and isolate the whole cab area. Here's a good look at the layout of the sound deadening prior to installing insulation. And to do that, we're using Second Skin Zone spray-on adhesive. Now, Pat is putting a preliminary layer inside the van. We let that tack up. Then we also spray the backside of the insulation and let it do the same. Then we join the two. Of course, then you gotta install it. So we're taking this large uncut sheet. This is the exact size these come. And we're gonna go ahead and get it up inside the cab area, and it fits so nicely in the front of a Sprinter. Look at that. Look at those clearances. So good. The insulation itself is a melamine foam. It is a hydrophobic product. Second Skin calls it MegaZorb Pro. It is heat resistant. It is hydrophobic, meaning water doesn't stick to it. It doesn't hold water, so it can't grow bacteria or mold. It is flame resistant. I mean, this stuff is a sort of wonder product, and as far as I'm aware, it's almost the same stuff as what you might see in like a magic eraser, which is also a melamine-based product. However, in this configuration, it has an R value of 8, and to me, this is one of the best possible insulations for any van. It doesn't off-gas, all of the negatives that you see. It doesn't settle in the pockets. This is an excellent insulator, and I'm just kind of shocked that more people don't use it on their van builds. So pay attention, people. This is the stuff that you want to be looking at. And of course, the next step is to fill in the rest of the space with this MegaZorb Pro insulation material so that we never have to go back in there and don't have to worry about it ever again in the future. And I'll be honest, this stuff's actually really easy to cut. It is one of the easiest products I've had to work with. It's a little bit delicate, but it is very easy to work with. And here's a good look at it, completely sound deadened and insulated. We'll never have to mess with this again. Really good coverage with that product. I'm super pleased. And I know you may not believe this, but while Pat was on lunch, I decided that I was going to jump in and help. I started by applying some of the Damplifier Pro in the cab area. This is going to go underneath the factory flooring. The factory does a piss poor job of sound deadening this whole cab area, so we wanted to make sure that we had the right product, the Damplifier Pro from Second Skin, all over the place. And of course, we started with a nice big sheet right under the passenger area. Of course, after hitting the passenger side, we got to move on to the driver's side and start applying this into every spot that we possibly could. It's about getting good coverage here because this is a noisy area. You can see I put some down behind the seats, in between, and of course in the footwell area on both sides to try and get coverage and get some dampening all over the place. After that, it's time to put the headliner back in the van. The adhesive has cured up nicely, and we're going to go ahead and get that back inside the front end, the cab area. Thank goodness for Pat, because I would have lost my ever-loving mind trying to get this thing in and out. So then, of course, all of the hardware and things need to go back where they were. The shelf needs to go back in the van. And then Pat and I are going to move on to insulating the rear, the cargo area. Now it's time for a time lapse. This took quite a while. Pat and I just going back and forth and making sure we had as much coverage as possible in all of the panels. Wherever we could get sound deadening material that made sense, we put it there. I worked on the roof while Pat worked on some of the lower panel areas. This isn't the most entertaining thing to watch. It's just us peeling and sticking, maybe cutting a panel here and there. I'm not going to bore you with it because it took quite a while to get it done. And to be fair, you probably don't have to get as much coverage as we got, but since Second Skin is a sponsor of this van build, we wanted to make sure we were showcasing their product the best we possibly could. The wheel wells in particular are very important to get good coverage on, so we took extra time to make sure we had that wrapped up nicely to really try and cut down on road noise. And we actually ran out of time on the day we were doing this, so it was then up to me to go ahead and sound deaden the rear doors and the slider door. I was a little bit intimidated by this, but gotta get it done, right?
All the dirt inside the back door. Gotta clean that before we do anything.
And really, again, it's about trying to get the key areas, trying to make sure that sound deadening was stopping vibrations, dampening vibrations across the rear and side door. There's a lot of material here, and there's a lot of spaces to hide the sound deadening material in, but here's a celebratory... Yeah.
Yes!
It's great.
That's way better.
Now, I've driven thousands of miles since the install of the Damplifier Pro and the insulation over my head, and all I can say is, wow, first of all, what a great company to deal with. Second Skin has been awesome in this partnership, and I can't wait to get the rest of the van insulated. The second thing is that I've actually had to turn down some of the stereo and songs and podcasts and all that sort of stuff that I listen to, because I was actually compensating at the normal levels. I was compensating for all the road noise. Now that the cab is insulated, sound deadened, and the back is sound deadened a good bit, I'll be honest with you guys, it's exactly the kind of stuff that the van needed. Now, of course, there's going to be more insulative and sound deadening properties of other materials that we're going to add, and it's only going to make it better. But really, in its core, this is about having a good foundation and the right products in the right places. And to me, the Damplifier Pro is exactly that. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.